The first snowflakes of December hit Cole Hartley's windshield like tiny bullets at 11:47 p.m. on December 23rd. Within minutes, those innocent flakes had multiplied into a full-blown Montana blizzard that reduced visibility to almost nothing. Cole gripped the steering wheel of his old Ford pickup tighter, leaning forward as if those extra few inches would help him see the road better. They didn't. The highway, if you could still call it that, under 6 inches of fresh powder, stretched out before him like a white void. The yellow center line, long since buried. He should have stayed in Billings. Should have checked into a cheap motel and waited out the storm like a sensible person. But Cole Hartley hadn't been sensible in a long time. Maybe ever. Besides, the ranch was another 40 miles north, and he'd be damned if he'd spend Christmas Eve in some dingy motel room, alone. Eating vending machine food and watching cable TV. At least at the ranch he could be alone in his own home, with his own whiskey, pretending he wasn't counting down the hours until another meaningless holiday passed. The radio crackled with static. He'd lost the country station about 20 miles back. Now it was just white noise, like the storm itself had invaded the truck. Cole was reaching to turn it off when his headlights caught something dark against the white landscape. He almost missed it. Almost convinced himself it was a deer or a trick of the snow. But something made him slow down, squinting through the windshield there, on the side of the road. A shape too angular to be an animal. Too still to be alive? But then it moved. Cole's heart kicked against his ribs. He hit the brakes too hard, the truck fishtailing slightly on the ice before the tires caught. He threw it into park and grabbed his flashlight from the glove box. His rancher's instincts already cataloging what he'd need. Blankets in the back, first aid kit under the seat, thermos of coffee that was probably still warm. The cold hit him like a physical force when he opened the door. Montana winters were brutal, but this was something else. The wind cut through his Carhartt jacket like it was made of paper, and the snow stung his face like frozen needles. "Hey," he called out, his voice swallowed by the storm. "Hey, you okay?" He stumbled through the snow toward the shape, his flashlight beam bouncing wildly. As he got closer, details emerged from the white chaos. A person. Definitely a person. Sitting against the guardrail, knees pulled up to chest, head down. A kid. "Jesus Christ," Cole muttered, breaking into a run. The snow made it more of a stumbling lurch. But he covered the distance in seconds. Up close, the kid was even younger than he'd thought. 16, maybe 17? Male, though it was hard to tell under the layers of inadequate clothing, a thin hoodie. Jeans, sneakers that were completely soaked through. No coat, no hat. No gloves. The kid's lips were blue. His skin had that waxy gray quality that Cole recognized from his time in the army, before he'd come home and buried himself on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. Hypothermia, advanced stages. My kid. "Can you hear me?" Cole crouched down, putting himself at eye level. No response. He reached out and touched the kid's shoulder. The fabric of the hoodie was frozen stiff. "I'm going to help you, okay? I'm going to get you to my truck." Still no response. The kid's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Cole didn't waste time waiting for permission. He slid one arm under the kid's knees, the other around his back, and lifted. The kid weighed nothing. Couldn't have been more than 120 pounds. Cole had hauled feed sacks heavier than this. The walk back to the truck was harder than the walk out had been. The wind had picked up, and Cole was essentially walking blind, following the faint glow of his headlights. The kid was a dead weight in his arms, head lolling against Cole's chest. "Stay with me," Cole said, though he wasn't sure if the kid could hear him. "Just stay with me. We're almost there." Getting the passenger door open while holding an unconscious teenager was an adventure, but Cole managed it. He laid the kid as gently as he could across the bench seat, then ran around to the driver's side. The heater was still going full blast. Cole pulled off his jacket and laid it over the kid, then grabbed the emergency blankets from behind the seat. The kid's sneakers were soaked through, so Cole pulled them off. The socks underneath were wet too. He stripped those off and wrapped the kid's feet in a blanket. The kid's eyes flickered open. Unfocused. Glassy. but open. "Okay," Cole said softly. "Welcome back. What's your name?" The kid's mouth moved. No sound came out. "It's okay. Don't try to talk yet." Cole cranked the heater up even higher. "I'm Cole. I'm going to get you somewhere warm, okay? Just hang in there." Put the truck back in gear and pulled carefully onto the road. The storm hadn't let up, if anything. It had gotten worse. The visibility was near zero, and the road was getting more treacherous by the minute. The nearest hospital was in Billings, 40 miles behind him. His ranch was 40 miles ahead. In this weather, either direction was a gamble. But at the ranch, he had a fireplace, dry clothes, hot water, food. At the hospital, he had a waiting room and overworked ER staff, who might take hours to see them. The decision wasn't really a decision at all. Cole turned the truck north, toward home. "Hang on, kid," he murmured. "Just hang on." The 40-mile drive took 2.5 hours. By the time Cole finally saw the turnoff for his property, his hands were cramping from gripping the wheel, and his eyes burned from staring into the snow. The kid had drifted in and out of consciousness the whole drive. Sometimes his eyes would flutter open, and he'd look around, confused and scared. Cole would talk to him in a low, steady voice, the same voice he used with spooked horses until the kid calmed down. Then he'd drift off again. Cole didn't try to get any information out of him. First priority was getting warm. Everything else could wait. The ranch house appeared out of the storm like a mirage 2-story log structure that had been in the Hartley family for 3 generations. Cole's grandfather had built it with his own hands. His father had maintained it. And Cole was letting it slowly fall apart. Because what was the point of maintaining a family home when you were the last of the family left? He pulled the truck as close to the front door as he could manage, threw it into park, and turned to the kid. "We're here. I'm going to carry you inside, okay?" The kid's eyes opened. This time, there was a bit more awareness in them. "Where... ... His voice was a croak. "It's safe. I promise." Cole grabbed his jacket and the blankets. "Can you walk?" The kid tried to sit up. Made it about 3 inches before his arms gave out. "That's what I thought." Cole came around to the passenger side and scooped the kid up again. The cold was even worse now that he'd been warm for a while. And Cole moved as fast as he dared through the snow. The front door was unlocked. He never locked it. Because who was going to rob a ranch in the middle of nowhere? And he kicked it open. The house was dark and cold. He'd turned the heat way down before leaving for Billings 3 days. Cole deposited the kid on the leather couch in the living room and immediately went to work on the fireplace. Thank God he'd left it laid with kindling and logs. Within minutes, he had a fire crackling. The kid was shivering now. That was good shivering, meant the body was trying to warm itself up. What was dangerous was when the shivering stopped. "I'm going to get you some dry clothes," Cole said. "Don't move." He took the stairs 2 at a time up to his bedroom, grabbing the first things he found: sweatpants, a thermal shirt, wool socks. They'd be way too big on the kid, but they'd be warm and dry. When he came back downstairs, the kid was trying to sit up. "Easy," Cole said, setting the clothes on the coffee table. "You've got hypothermia. Your body's been through hell. Don't push it." "I'm fine," the kid muttered, but his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't even unzip his hoodie. "You're not fine. Here, let me help." Cole knelt in front of the couch and gently pulled the zipper down. The hoodie underneath was just as wet as everything else. The kid's t-shirt beneath that was plastered to his skin. "We need to get these wet clothes off you," Cole said. "Can you do it yourself, or do you need help?" The kid's jaw tightened. Pride, Cole recognized. The same stubborn pride that had kept Cole himself from asking for help more times than he could count. "I can do it," the kid said. "Okay, I'll turn around. You let me know when you're decent." Cole busied himself building up the fire, giving the kid privacy. He heard rustling behind him, a few muttered curses, the sound of wet fabric hitting the floor. "Okay," the kid finally said. Cole turned around. The kid was swimming in Cole's clothes, the sweatpants bunched up around his ankles, the thermal shirt hanging off his thin frame like a tent. But he was dry, and that was what mattered. "Better?" Cole asked. The kid nodded. He'd stopped shivering quite as violently, though his lips were still tinged blue. Good, now I'm going to make you something warm to drink. You're going to drink it. Then you're going to tell me what the hell you were doing on the side of a highway in the middle of a blizzard with no coat? The kid's eyes dropped. I don't want to talk about it. It's tough. You don't get to nearly die on my watch and then refuse to explain yourself. Cole's voice was harsher than he meant it to be, and he saw the kid flinch. He took a breath and softened his tone. Look, I'm not going to hurt you or turn you in or whatever you're afraid of, but I need to know what's going on, starting with your name. And the kid was quiet for a long moment. Then, so quietly, almost didn't hear it. Elijah. My name's Elijah. Elijah. Okay, good. Cole stood up. I'm going to make some hot chocolate. You stay put and keep warm. In the kitchen, Cole fumbled through the process of heating milk and stirring in cocoa powder. His hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline, he told himself. Just adrenaline from the drive and the rescue. Nothing to do with the kid's eyes, which held a kind of desperate wariness that Cole recognized all too well. He'd seen that look before. In the mirror, mostly, in the months after he'd come home from Afghanistan. When the hot chocolate was ready, Cole carried 2 mugs back to the living room. Elijah had curled up in the corner of the couch, knees pulled to his chest, staring into the fire. He looked impossibly young. Here, Cole handed him a mug. Careful, it's hot. Elijah wrapped both hands around the mug like it was precious. He took a sip and his eyes closed. Something like relief crossing his face. Cole sat down in the armchair across from him and sipped his own hot chocolate. The silence stretched out, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the howl of the wind outside. Finally, Cole said, I'm going to ask you some questions. You don't have to answer them all tonight, but I need to know some basics. Elijah's hands tightened around the mug. Like what? Like how old are you? 16, younger than Cole had guessed. Where are you from? Originally? Great Falls, but I've been moving around. Okay. Cole kept his voice neutral. Were you running away from something? Or toward something? Elijah's jaw worked. Both. Neither. I don't know. Are your parents looking for you? The kid's expression shuddered completely. No. That single word held a universe of pain. Cole didn't push. Is there someone I should call? Someone who's worried about you? No, Elijah. There's no one, okay? The kid's voice rose, cracking. There's no one to call. No one who cares. No one who's looking. I'm alone. The words hung in the air between them. Cole saw the moment Elijah realized he'd said too much, the way he hunched in on himself, waiting for judgment or questions or pity. Cole gave him none of those things. Okay, he said simply. Then you'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow, when the storm clears, we'll figure out what's next. But tonight, you're safe and warm, and that's enough. Elijah looked up at him, eyes wide with something that might have been surprise or disbelief. Just like that? Just like that. You don't even know me. I could be dangerous. I could rob you or kid. You weigh about as much as a bag of feed and you can barely hold a mug of hot chocolate. I think I can take my chances. Cole took another sip of his drink. Besides, it's Christmas Eve. It seemed like the right thing to do. It's Christmas Eve. Elijah sounded surprised, like he'd lost track of days entirely. Yeah, almost Christmas anyway. Cole glanced at the clock on the mantel. Technically still got about an hour. Elijah looked back at the fire. I forgot. Easy to do when you're fighting for survival. They sat in silence again. Cole watched the kid's eyelids start to droop, the warmth and the exhaustion finally catching up with him. Elijah, Cole said softly. When's the last time you ate? The kid had to think about it. That was answer enough. I'll make you something. You stay here. I'm not hungry, Elijah protested, but his stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. Stay. Cole went back to the kitchen and rummaged through his fridge. Pickings were slim. He'd been planning to do a grocery run after Christmas, but he found eggs, cheese, and some slightly stale bread. He made scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, but it was hot and it was food. When he brought the plate back to the living room, Elijah was fighting to keep his eyes open. Eat, Cole said, setting the plate on the coffee table. Then you can sleep. Elijah ate mechanically, like he'd forgotten how to taste food and was just going through the motions. But he cleaned the entire plate, soaking up the last bits of egg with the toast. And Cole found himself wondering how many meals the kid had missed. Better. Cole asked when Elijah set down his fork. Yeah, thank you. There's a guest room upstairs. But I think you should stay down here by the fire tonight. I'll get you some pillows and more blankets. Cole made up the couch like a bed, piling on every spare blanket he owned. Elijah watched him with that same wary expression, like he was waiting for the catch for the other shoe to drop. What do you want from me? Elijah finally asked. Cole paused and fluffing a pillow. What do you mean? Nobody does stuff like this for nothing. Nobody picks up a random kid and brings him home and feeds him and doesn't want something in return. Elijah's voice was flat, emotionless. So what do you want? The question and the lifetime of hurt behind it hit Cole like a punch to the gut. He sat down on the coffee table, facing Elijah directly. I don't want anything from you, kid. Nothing except for you to be safe and warm and alive. That's it. That's the whole deal. Why? Because you're 16 and you were dying on the side of the road? Because it's Christmas. Because ... Cole stopped, searching for the right words. Because someone helped me once when I needed it, and I never got the chance to thank them. So maybe this is me paying it forward. Elijah stared at him for a long moment. Then, so quietly, Cole almost missed it. Thank you. You're welcome. Now get some sleep. We'll talk more in the morning. Cole stood to go upstairs, but Elijah's voice stopped him. Cole. Yeah. Why were you out there? On the highway? In the storm? I was trying to get home for Christmas. Do you have family? People waiting for you? Cole thought about the empty house, the silent phone, the Christmas that would pass unmarked except for the date on the calendar. No, not anymore. Then we're the same, Elijah said. Both alone. Cole didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded, said goodnight, and headed upstairs to his bedroom. But as he lay in bed listening to the storm rage outside, he thought about Elijah's words, both alone. Maybe that was true. But somehow, tonight, with a strange kid sleeping downstairs by his fireplace, Cole felt a little less alone than he had in years. Cole woke to silence. The wind had stopped. The house creaked in that particular way that meant the temperature had dropped below zero, and there were no sounds from downstairs. For a heart-stopping moment, Cole thought Elijah had left, that he'd woken up in the night, panicked, and ran back out into the storm. Cole was out of bed and down the stairs in seconds. Not bothering with the shirt or shoes, Elijah was still there. He was curled up on the couch, buried under the mountain of blankets, only the top of his dark hair visible. The fire had burned down 2 embers, but the kid was breathing steadily, deeply asleep. Cole exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. He rebuilt the fire, moving quietly so he wouldn't wake Elijah. When the flames were crackling again, he went to the kitchen to make coffee. The storm had passed overnight, leaving behind a world transformed. Through the window, Cole could see nothing but white snow drifted up against the barn, buried the fences, turned his truck into a lumpy sculpture. The sky was that brilliant, almost painful blue you only got after a major storm. It was beautiful. And they were completely snowed in. Cole pulled out his phone. No signal. The storm must have taken down a cell tower. He tried the landline dead. The phone lines went down in every major storm. It usually took the phone company a week or 2 to get around to fixing them. So, they were cut off from the outside world. No way to call anyone, no way for anyone to call in. The road wouldn't be plowed for days. Maybe a week. It was just him and Elijah alone on the ranch. For Christmas, Cole poured himself coffee and stood at the window, watching the sun rise over the snow-covered mountains in the distance. He should have been frustrated about being trapped. Should have been annoyed about having a teenage runaway as an unexpected house guest. Instead, he felt ... calm, purposeful. For the first time in months, maybe years, he had something to do besides maintain a ranch he didn't care about and wait for each meaningless day to pass. He had someone to take care of. Is that coffee? Cole turned to see Elijah standing in the doorway, wrapped in one of the blankets like a cape. His hair was sticking up at odd angles, and there were pillow creases on his face. He looked about 12 years old. "Yeah. You want some?" "Please." Cole poured a second mug and handed it to Elijah, who wrapped both hands around it and took a sip. He made a face. "Too strong?" Cole asked. "I've never actually had coffee before." "Never." Elijah shrugged. "My mom didn't drink it. And after I left, there were more important things to spend money on than coffee." Cole filed that information away. "There's milk and sugar if you want to cut it," Elijah added. Generous amounts of both until the coffee was more milk than anything else, then took another tentative sip. "Better." He stood in companionable silence, sipping their coffee and looking out at the snow. "The storm stopped," Elijah observed. "But we're snowed in. Probably for a few days at least." "Phone's out too." Cole watched Elijah's expression carefully. He was expecting panic, maybe, or anger, or fear. Instead, Elijah just nodded. Okay. "Yeah. I mean, where would I go anyway?" He took another sip of coffee. "If that's okay with you, me staying. I can work. I can earn my keep. I'm good with animals and I can kid Elijah." "Slow down." Cole set his mug on the counter. "You can stay as long as you need to. You don't have to earn anything. You're not a burden." "Everyone's a burden eventually," Elijah said quietly. "Who told you that?" Experience. Cole wanted to ask more, to dig into that statement and understand what had happened to this kid to make him so resigned to being unwanted. But he remembered his own experience with well-meaning people trying to get him to talk before he was ready. "Well, you're not a burden here," Cole said firmly. "And since we're stuck together for a few days, we might as well make the best of it. You hungry?" "Starving. Could I make a mean Christmas breakfast?" "You like pancakes?" For the first time since Cole had found him, Elijah smiled. It was small and tentative, but it was real. "Yeah, I like pancakes." Cole made an enormous stack of pancakes plain. Because he discovered his syrup had expired sometime last year, and they ate at the kitchen table while the morning. Light streamed through the windows. "So," Cole said around a mouthful of pancake, "since it's Christmas and we're snowed in, what do you want to do today?" Elijah looked confused by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's Christmas. We should do something. Watch movies? Play games? I don't know. What do you usually do on Christmas?" The kid's expression shuddered. "Nothing. I haven't celebrated Christmas in 3 years." "Why not?" "Because... Elijah poked at his pancakes. "Because Christmas is for families, and I don't have one of those." The matter-of-fact way he said it broke something in Cole's chest. "What happened to your family?" Cole asked gently. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I'm listening if you do." Elijah was quiet for so long that Cole thought he wasn't going to answer. "Then, my mom died when I was 13. Cancer. It was fast 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. My dad..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "My dad couldn't handle it. He started drinking. A lot. And when he drank, he got mean." Cole's hands tightened around his fork. "It was okay at first. Just yelling. But then it got worse. And I thought about telling someone, a teacher, a counselor, someone. But I was scared. Scared they'd take me away and put me in foster care. Scared my dad would get in trouble. Scared of being even more alone." Elijah's voice was flat, reciting facts. "So I just dealt with it. For 2 years, until last summer, when he hit me hard enough to crack 2 ribs and give me a concussion." "Jesus," Cole breathed. "I left that night. Just packed a bag and walked out. I've been on my own since July. I've been homeless for 6 months. Not homeless, just ... not homed. There's a difference." Elijah finally looked up at Cole. "Not some pitiful kid who needs rescuing." "I've been doing fine on my own." "Elijah, you were dying on the side of the road." "That was just bad luck." "Wrong place? Wrong time? What were you even doing out there?" Elijah's jaw tightened. "I was trying to get to Spokane. I heard there were good shelters there. Better than Great Falls, anyway. I hitched a ride with this trucker, but then he started. He wanted." The kid couldn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Cole understood. You jumped out of the truck, Cole said, at the middle of nowhere. In a blizzard? Not my smartest move. Elijah's laugh was bitter. But I'd rather freeze to death than that. Cole had to take a moment to breathe through the rage building in his chest. Rage at the father who'd driven his own kid onto the streets. Rage at the trucker who'd tried to take advantage of a desperate teenager. Rage at a world that let 16-year-old kids fall through the cracks. I'm sorry, Cole finally said. I'm sorry that happened to you. All of it. You deserved better. Elijah shrugged, but Cole could see the emotion the kid was trying to hide. It is what it is. No, it's not. Cole leaned forward. Elijah, listen to me. What your father did, that's not okay. What that trucker tried to do, that's not okay. And you surviving on your own for 6 months at 16 years old, that's not okay either. You're a kid. You should be in school, worrying about homework and girls or boys. I don't judge what college you want to go to. Not fighting to survive. Well, that's not my reality, Elijah said sharply. So there's no point in thinking about what should be. They sat in tense silence. Then Elijah sighed. I'm sorry. That was rude. You saved my life. You don't have to apologize for being angry. God knows you've earned the right. Cole stood up and started clearing the plates. But Elijah, I need you to understand something. You're safe here. For as long as you want to stay, whether that's a few days until the road's clear, or longer, you're safe. No one's going to hurt you. No one's going to take advantage of you. You're just a kid who deserves to have a place to sleep and food to eat, and maybe, if you want a Christmas that doesn't suck. Elijah looked up at him with those two old eyes. Why do you care? Because someone should, Cole said simply. And right now, I'm the someone who's here. He left Elijah to digest that and went to wash the dishes. When he turned around, Elijah was still sitting at the table, staring down at his hands. Cole. The kid's voice was small. Yeah, thank you. For last night? For this morning? For ... everything. You're welcome. ... If the offer's still open, I'd like to have a Christmas that doesn't suck. Cole smiled. It felt strange on his face. He hadn't smiled much in the past few years. Then that's what we'll do. Fair warning, I'm not great at Christmas. But I'll try. I'm not great at it either, Elijah admitted. So we'll figure it out together? Yeah, Cole said. Together. The problem, Cole realized as he stood in his living room surveying the complete lack of Christmas decorations, was that he had absolutely no idea how to do Christmas. The last real Christmas he'd celebrated had been ... What? 7 years ago? Before Afghanistan? Before everything fell apart, his mom had died while he was overseas. His dad had followed 2 years later, heart attack at 63. His sister had moved to Seattle with her new husband, and they'd drifted apart, reduced to awkward phone calls twice a year that neither of them seemed to know how to end. The ranch had become Cole's refuge and his prison. He worked it because it was what he knew, what his family had always done. But there was no joy in it, just routine. Just survival, kind of like Elijah, he realized with a start. So, Elijah said, appearing in the doorway. He'd changed into another set of Cole's clothes jeans that he'd had to roll up several times and a flannel shirt that hung off his thin frame. What's the plan? Cole looked around the bare living room. No tree, no lights, no stockings hung by the fireplace. Nothing to indicate that it was Christmas except the date on the calendar. Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't celebrated Christmas in years. Why not? Cole considered lying. Considered giving some easy answer about being too busy or not caring about holidays. But Elijah had been honest with him. He deserved honesty in return. Because the people I used to celebrate with are gone, Cole said. And celebrating alone just made me feel more alone. So I stopped. Elijah nodded slowly. I get that. Yeah, I figured you would. They stood there in the empty living room. Two people who'd both given up on Christmas, trying to figure out how to bring it back. We could go cut down a tree, Elijah suggested. I saw some pines on the drive-in last night. Before I passed out, in 3 feet of snow. I've been sleeping in snowbanks for the last month. This is practically a tropical vacation. Cole couldn't help but laugh. Okay, tree it is. Let me find you some boots and a proper coat. 20 minutes later, they were bundled up and trudging through the snow toward the tree line. Cole had an axe over his shoulder, and Elijah was using a walking stick to steady himself. The kid was still weak, moving slower than he probably wanted to admit. But there was color in his cheeks and a lightness in his step that hadn't been there at breakfast. "Tell me about your family," Elijah said as they walked. "The ones you used to celebrate with." Cole hadn't talked about his family in years. But something about the snow and the silence and this strange kid made it easier. "My mom loved Christmas," he started. Like, really loved it. She'd start decorating the day after Thanksgiving. The whole house would be covered in lights and garland and these ridiculous little Santa figurines she collected. She'd bake for weeks cookies and pies and this terrible fruitcake that nobody liked, but everyone pretended to love because it made her happy. She sounds nice. She died while I was deployed in Afghanistan. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I'm sorry. Thanks. My dad. He loved Christmas too, but in a quieter way. He'd take me and my sister out to cut down a tree every year, just like we're doing now. We'd spend the whole day looking for the perfect one. He had this whole system. The tree had to be exactly 7 feet tall, full on all sides, with branches strong enough to hold ornaments. Did you always find the perfect one? Never, but that was part of the fun. Cole smiled at the memory. We'd settle for a tree that was close enough, and then my dad would tell my mom it was the best tree he'd ever seen. Every year she'd see right through him, but she'd smile anyway. They walked in silence for a few minutes. "What about your sister?" Elijah asked. Cole's smile faded. "Rachel, she's good. Lives in Seattle now. We don't talk much. Why not? Because I'm not good at staying in touch. Because she has her own life, and I have mine. Because—" Cole stopped, realizing something he'd never quite put into words before. "Because after our parents died, I think we reminded each other too much of what we'd lost. It was easier to drift apart than to deal with the grief together. That's sad." "Yeah, it is." Cole looked over at Elijah. "What about you? Any sibling?" "Geez, no, just me." Elijah kicked at the snow. "Sometimes I wondered what it would be like to have a brother or sister. Someone who'd understand. Someone who'd be on my side." "I think you would have been a good brother." Elijah looked surprised. "Why?" "Because you're tough. You're a survivor. And you've got a good heart, even after everything you've been through. Those are the qualities that make a good brother." Elijah looked away. But not before Cole saw the emotion in his eyes. They reached the tree line and spent the next half hour examining various pines, debating their merits. Elijah took it seriously, circling each tree, checking the branches, measuring with his eyes. "This one," he finally declared, pointing to a pine that was maybe 6 feet tall, slightly crooked. "With one side fuller than the other, that one? Kid, it's lopsided, so we'll put the bare side against the wall. No one will know. It's also kind of scraggly. It's got character." Elijah looked up at Cole. "It's trying its best. Seems like it deserves a chance." Cole looked at the tree.